Welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin. I'm the training coordinator with ASFPM. And before we get into our webinar, our topic at hand today, I want to just make a couple of announcements before we kick things off. So number one, just kind of admin item, but we're recording this session. So, if we're moving too fast or you're taking notes, maybe you missed something, or if you just want to reference it later on for whatever reason, we're going to make that recording available on the floods.org section for this subcommittee. So just letting you know you have that backstop of this being recorded. And then just a couple quick comments about credits and certificates of attendance. We are issuing CECs for this webinar for those of you that participate in the entire thing. And then we'll be sending you certificates of attendance as well. Both of those things will take administratively a week or potentially up to 2 weeks to finalize. But just so you know, you'll be getting that certificate of attendance emailed to you. So keep an eye on your inbox there. And then for national level CFMs who earn credit, we'll be applying that to your records automatically. But so without any further ado, we can get into the topic today. And for that, we have Yan and Ma. And if Yan, you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, the subcommittee's work, and what we're going to be getting into today. You're on mute, Yan.
Oh,
There we
thanks.
go. Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna start share my screen. I prepared a couple slides. Basically, where the ASFPM AI Subcommittee under the Higher Education Committee. If you attended the previous two sections, you should be familiar with us. My name is Yanama, and I currently co-hosting this subcommittee with Palmetto together. So we kicked off this subcommittee this June in the Salt Lake City conference this year. So we did see a lot of interest from this community, and I just want to give a very brief updates to everyone before we have our today's speaker up on the screen. So let me go to the next slide. One housekeeping thing, just making sure you sign up under the Higher Education Policy Committee on the ASM website. That's the way we're going to communicate with everyone in this channel. And there's people asking if they can share the webinar, outside of ASFPM. It's at this moment, the whole event's still like we focusing within our ASFPM membership. So if making sure you sign up the membership to get access to those events. Okay, so a little bit updates since last time we met. So it's the same survey results. I think I showed this dashboard last time as well. It's a Power BI dashboard. That's basically the data we gathered from the Google dot. So if you're gonna see some increasing on the numbers like the familiarity of AI skill set, I see this number increased since last two months. Because in the past, we only got 4 people claim themselves to be expert on this area, and now we got 14 people in this bucket. So it's a big increasement. I also added a time series trend like chart here, just kind of show everyone how the data can bring us some insights of the activities. So you can see the first time we announced our subcommittee establishment, that was May 13th. So you're going to see this increasement on the membership go straight up here. And then we got into a very, stable and slowly increasing on the membership from June to September. And then after September the 5th, that's the second time we did our webinar announcement, and you're going to see another jump after September the 5th, and then continue to today. So it's just a little bit, data trick to want to show everyone how we're going to use data to give us instructions. Okay. And then I'm gonna start give us the introduction of today's speaker. So we have Sky King, and I actually made a introduction video. Can everyone still see my screen here? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, I made this introduction video using AI. So I'm gonna let AI talk through the introduction piece, and we can start here.
Sky King brings over 20 years of experience at the intersection of health, technology, and the environment. She specializes in applying behavior science and storytelling to communicate complex topics like AI and its impact. Sky has appeared on the Today Show to discuss her work in cultural diplomacy and published over 100 articles on AI technologies. She has spoken at numerous events and completed an executive program on AI and business strategy at MIT. Sky is part of the Mozilla Foundation's ecosystemic AI community of practice, focusing on social justice aspects of AI. Currently, she serves as SVP Social Impact at Ogilvy, working with clients across private and public sectors. Now, I will turn it over to Sky for her presentation of AI-empowered risk communications and public engagement.
All right, I hope everyone enjoyed this 1-minute AI made introduction video, and I'm gonna open the floor to Sky so she can start today's presentation. Okay.
All right, all I have to say is wow. I need to bring that intro or look at that tool. That was really great. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and what you see on here is just the link to my LinkedIn page. But for the purpose of today, we're going to be using Slido in a few different ways. And I'm going to just keep this up on, I'll put this in presentation mode in a second, but want you to have enough time to gather this information together. And we'll also be sharing this in the chat. It's probably easiest to just grab your phone and do the questions we have on there. The first question we have popped up is, what are your feelings on the use of AI tools in the workplace? So I'd love to have folks start to explore and answer that. Again, I think we've got, I'm just confirming, we have the link in the chat. I cannot see the chat in the view that I have right now. But again, scan this, or you can go to slido.com and type in 227711.5, and that will get you to the series of different survey questions we have. So with that, I'd love to start out, and when we start to get responses in, I should be able to see those and can share those broadly. But as I said, what are your feelings about the use of AI tools in the workplace? And then you'll see a question after that, which is, where are you in the journey of using AI tools? So, when we think about the different uses, I would venture a guess, and you guys can help me gather this in the chat, but I would venture a guess that many of us have been using maybe parts of it in our personal life, but maybe you're just starting to get into the foray of things at work. And again, you can see the QR code there, see that in the chat. I'm seeing some things come in. Someone's saying, I'm loving it, but I want to know more. Another person says it's intimidating. We've got someone who says they're excited, great for reference as a support tool, optimistic. We're getting a few details on there. So as you get into the Slido, again, we're going to be using this a couple of times today. I'd love for you to take a look at that next question in the rankings there as well, which is, where are you in the journey of using AI tools in your work? So you'll see there, it ranges from not sure if I'm interested, I'm not using it yet, all the way up to, where you're maybe using it a couple of times a day. And I think, why don't I bring this in here so you all can just see some of the responses we're starting to get in here. So, you can see here, we have a lot of this particular audience in the interested but not yet using. So that's great. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today actually getting you into a couple of these tools, and if you haven't had a chance to try it yet, hopefully by the end of today, that will have at least moved up to an occasional use once a month. You used it once this month. So you can see here a couple of things changing and shifting. And we do have about 4% of the folks on this call who are using these tools daily, multiple times. And I would certainly, I've probably used it 5 or 6 times today already, myself, across a lot of different different needs. So this is just a little exploration, and as you all get into the Slido, I'll share these up again afterward, and we can kind of explore. So you'll see a couple of other questions if you feel like answering. We've got a couple more that are about what AI tools are of interest to you, and we'll be sharing those a little bit more later. So with that, I'd like to get us into what we're going to be covering today. And I'm going to hit us into presentation mode. So hopefully you all can see this a little easier now. So we'll briefly be covering some of the applications of AI for risk communication in particular. I've tried to sprinkle a couple of examples and case studies. We also have a wealth of information and knowledge on this call itself. I know there's some expert users that are on this call. So I'd like to invite folks to really think of this as a learning lab together today. So if you have a great example or a tool you're using, or a case study or other things that you want to share, please share those in the chat. In the Q&A session at the end, I'd also love to invite you all to share as well. So really want this to be collaborative, because we're all learning from each other. And given how quickly everything is moving, we need to work together to stay on top of everything. We're going to chat through a few opportunities to practice using AI chat tools today. And then, as always, this is an area I'm really passionate about, is thinking through some of those safety, security, and ethical considerations. And that continues to grow and change. You'll all get this presentation afterward. There are a bunch of resources. What I'm thinking is, if folks share resources in the chat, we'll also compile and pull those in as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can create together. So when I was first preparing to do, a version of this presentation at ASFPM, I was thinking a lot about kind of those different inflection points that we see in our careers. And when I was first starting out in the 80s and 90s, right, a lot of those traditional communication approaches, that was all we had. Those interpersonal interactions, being able to have one-on-one conversations with people, holding in-person meetings, those types of things. But when we got into the internet, that just sort of broke things wide open. I can still remember I was working with an environmental nonprofit, and had to convince the steering committee we needed our first website. We needed to be on the internet, and then actually hard coded that first, website all the way back then. So, the internet was another sort of bump and movement we saw in our communications realm. And then social media was another one that really impacted the ways in which we might reach audiences, and the ways in which we might engage people and think about how to create messages and focus on things in a way that we could use those tools. So I really think about these technology tools as a progression and a growth. So when we're thinking about AI tools, they really are just that. These are the sorts of technologies that we as communicators, we as collaborators, we as partners want to have in our toolkit, and want to be familiar enough with that we can use them to help, especially in areas of risk communication and public engagement. Now, that being said, there are a multitude of different ways in which we can, use these tools. And, what we need to think about is that, we want to make sure we're using them in ways that are for the benefit of humanity, not to the detriment. This is about augmenting our skills. This is not about, replacing humans in the equation. And that's why I really try to position them as tools. This is not a rip and replace for your team. This is, how can we do what we do better, faster, more effectively, and still harness the great minds and strategy that we have across our colleagues and across our work. So when thinking about risk communication, there are 6 areas that I sort of felt we were falling into using them for our work in risk communications and sort of communications in general. So, are there ways we can overcome language and communication barriers? Where could we streamline the management of the information? I mean, you all produce a lot of content. We are all digesting a lot of content. So how could we do that in different ways? We see AI tools being used for enhancing alert systems. How do we optimize kind of the human resources element of things? How do we think about resourcing and connecting people in different ways? There are AI tools that help us do that. And there are a lot of really interesting, more cutting edge areas where they're exploring use of AI tools for enabling real-time monitoring and analysis, thinking about how we could improve disaster planning and response and all of those. And one of the questions, I think probably a year or so ago, we got into a great conversation around this at Ogilvy about how do we, what is that spectrum of use? Because not all uses of AI tools are created equally. And there are some that, me and others, and you would characterize as lower risk. And so this was my, attempt at sort of capturing that, and your own risk profile for a given organization or for the people you work with might look a little different from this, but just from a general sense, thinking about, a lot of the tools that we'll be exploring a little bit around language simplification or automated translation, some of those things have been in the works for many years. People have been have documented use, have worked out the bugs, those types of things in those kind of earlier stages. Whereas when we get to the upper right, where we get into the red part of the arrow, the reason it's red is because I want to caution you, when we're looking at AI tools used in those areas, there is still a lot of testing and validation and experimentation that needs to happen in order for those to be trusted and used with a lot of rigor in those areas. And I'm happy to say that there are a lot of trainings and research projects and other things that are focused in those realms. As I go along here, you will see a couple of different images that I've used throughout. And I want to go back to this slide because the area that I thought we could really focus in on today is around this sort of what I would call the safer areas to go into. So, the language simplification all the way up to document simplification. So again, taking a look at the different AI tools that are of interest to you, I'd love to share what this group is thinking. So hopefully you can see this on the screen now. So it looks like 31% of you on this call today are interested in simplifying language and creating content. So that is the area that seems to be of greatest interest. We have a few folks also, I think that's closely followed by quickly understanding documents, reports, and other resources. And then we've got a handful that are thinking about automating responses. So we will be exploring those a little bit more today. All right, so if we get into this, just from a high level, there are a number of different ways we can use AI tools to help with our overcoming language and communication barriers. So we've talked about the language simplification briefly. We see different examples in translation and responses. And I'm curious, how many of you have heard or seen, the number of jurisdictions that are actually using AI tools for help in their community meetings? Some of you seeing the real-time text and speech. There's actually even more jurisdictions I've seen use Wordly as part of their language translation so that there is more access and accessibilities during their online meetings. We see some really cost-effective elements of that. So no, well, I shouldn't say no, but it would be challenging for an organization to have, 30 different translators available to help with a given community meeting. But there are some, case studies and examples of that there. So maybe there's some automated translation opportunities, and then automated responses are certainly very useful. So what I'd like to do is actually get our hands a little dirty here. And so we're hoping for you to pull up your favorite chat tool that you might have been using. And if you don't have one of those yet, we're going to have those shared in the text or shared in the chat feature right now. If probably one like ChatGPT or Copilot, as long as you guys have your Google or Microsoft details handy or in your mind, you could jump into one of those. So what I'm hoping to do is to have us, see what some of the responses are that you all have. And the report that I would love for us to think a little bit about from a exploration standpoint and from a document summary standpoint is this National Preparedness Report from 2023. So you can see the URL on the screen. We're also going to share that in the chat. But this is, I thought this would be sort of a fun way to explore how we can use these different tools. And for those of you who haven't yet had a chance to try it, you're going to get a chance today. So any questions, I think my colleagues can help to field those in the chat, but point here is to pull up one of your favorite chat features right now. So for this exercise, we're going to focus first on plain language simplification. And that's great because that was our number one option for folks on this call. So you're going to have a chance to try this right now. So you go into your chat feature, and I would like for you to place a complex sentence or complex paragraph into the chat feature in that interface. And so again, I think we've got the draft of that content in the chat for you. You can also see what the original was in this version that I'm sharing right now. And the sample prompt you want to put in that little taskbar at the bottom is something simple like rewrite the following text in plain language, suitable for an audience with 8th grade reading level, or please decrease the amount of text even further. That might be a secondary prompt that you take a look at. So I'm just curious, what are folks revealing when you try that? And if that's something you want to share in the chat or something you want to come off mute to share, I'd love to kind of see what folks are getting. Again, our goal here is to simplify the language in this text. And this is specifically from an OMB memo. I thought, many of you might have even read the full result. Gemini doesn't seem to be able to parse the PDF file. Okay. Well, here, instead of a PDF, why don't we just grab the content? And I think here, I'll try that again. If you can cut and paste the content that's in the chat bar and just, maybe don't try to attach the report, but try to just put in this one block of content. So that will hopefully help to start things. And again, we've talked about with the AI subcommittee having more and more opportunities to at least test and experiment, especially for members of our team and members of our audience here that haven't yet had a chance to explore these tools. So seeing what folks are getting, what are folks sharing? What kind of ways did you see that text being simplified? All right, Josh says he can't copy and paste from the chat. All right, I'm not sure. I don't know if someone's got a solution to that, but I can show you. Can't copy and paste from the chat. All right, well, then I would say if there is a block of text you just have on your desktop, that maybe it's something you've been working on or an email you've been looking to send to someone, this would also be an option. Can I AI how to copy and paste from a webinar chat? Absolutely. I think that's a great question. But in the meantime, I can show you, I did this exercise beforehand and wanted to show you the results that we get. So, the first time around, the first rewrite, you can see, it's shorter. The reading level has decreased. We also see, simpler language being used. And then, but for me, when I'm thinking about plain language or using AI tools for simplification, I often don't take the first rewrite or the first draft that I get. So in this case, we actually put in another prompt that said, please decrease the amount of text even further. And this is the second rewrite that I had. So just, 2 steps here. This gives you an example of, where we can take some, more complex text from a document, in this case, this OMB memo. And at the end, the summary paragraph really was just saying, AI can help government improve services, but it comes with risks. This memo focuses on using AI safely while protecting the public. Okay. And thank you, Christopher, and others who are in the chat who are opening the file from the resources tab and open the PDF twin you can copy. So thank you very much for that. But I do love the point about querying one of your AI tools for additional insights on things. I think that's a great use of an AI tool. So the other realm I would love for us to explore on for this is how we can use AI tools for streamlining information management. This looked like it was another topic people were interested in exploring. So, we do have examples of that. I know the group in FEMA's budget actually was taking a look at, that's a lot of content and a lot of information for their members and for other folks coming in to digest, right? You might want to get the gist of what they're providing. And they had thousands of inbound inquiries every year, and they wanted to use an AI tool to help simplify and increase the quality of the responses that they were getting. And what I thought was really interesting about the way that they approached this effort was they didn't just, sort of set up a GPT or something of that sort to do the responses. They validated it. So similar to that exercise we just did where we, had summaries or maybe used an AI tool to give us that first draft. They then had experts who knew that document inside and out go in there and actually validate the responses. So that was their opportunity, again, to get that human element into there and that expertise and those things that are really important to validate what the responses are to make that tool even better. So now when people go in and use that, and again, I've got, links and things we'll include in the resources. It was implemented in February of 2024, and it had a profound impact on decreasing the number of inbound requests for additional information, and they were able to really answer those high-level questions folks had. All right, so we're going to try another supercharging of your use of AI tools. So I know that we had that list of the AI tools in the previous slide, and I'm just going to push this up here one more time. I'm going to just take a look at this. Maybe you do a screen grab. Again, we'll share this in the tools. Let me see. I think I can cut and paste since I'm not in presentation mode, and I can include that in the chat again as well. So if you have one of the larger versions, I'd also love for us to try taking a look at summarizing a document. And again, I'll show you, how we're doing this, but you are able to, in whatever interface you're using, so if it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or one of the others, there should be a little paper clip where you can upload that document or upload that report. And so this national preparedness report is the one that I thought would be interesting for us to take a look at, right? Valid for the work that we're doing. And if you go into that and actually download it to your desktop, you're then able to save it or move that up into your ChatGPT realm, into your window. So once you do that, I'm going to have us share the sample prompt. And the other thing that I have done as well is, sometimes when it's not, the full report that's valid for you, but just a section, I will go ahead and cut and paste that and pull that into the tool as well. So there are sort of two methods you can use to summarize a document. You could pull in the full document, or you could pull in a portion of the document. So our goal here is to test, attach, and paste that longer report. And then curious if anybody wants to share what they're finding, what's working, what's not working. I can give you an example of what you might see. So, for me, you can see here, this was in, I think this was in GPT-4. It was just one of the versions of ChatGPT. And this was to summarize the key findings here. And you can see, it talks here about the rise in disasters, vulnerabilities, those things. So you get a little bit of, what your result might look like. Can we put in the entire 59 pages? So Christopher, if you click on the, it looks like a little paper tab, it does allow you to upload PDFs and other documents. If you purchase the sort of $20 a month or sort of the professional versions, you can do larger and larger documents. I really love Gemini 1.5 because that has quite a lot of content space. So when you're uploading or using one of those tools, I don't have to think as much about what size the PDF is or how many pages there are. So it really depends on what you're using. Oh, and Jacob, thank you for that. So you can upload it, and if you hit enter, it will parse it enough to give you a brief summary. Yes. All right. Oh, it's not a clip, but it does allow upload. Okay, Christopher, great. You're right. I was referring to the tool you see in some of the other versions. All right. So we're getting some folks playing a little bit with the report summarization. I'd love for you to think about, okay, I have a summary of this report. I've uploaded this. Now, what do I want to explore next, right? I might want to, maybe I want to present on this report, or I want to share this with other colleagues. So I've pulled in some prompts here just as examples, but you could play with this as you'd like. Um, I like to give pretty detailed instructions, and in one of the resources we'll make sure to include, there are places you can go to learn about prompting. But I'll tell you a trick. If you're wondering how to create a prompt for a given thing you're trying to do, you could actually put that request into ChatGPT itself and get options of prompts for you. So you don't even need to, in my opinion, you don't even need to take a special like prompting course or become a prompt engineer or whatever that is. The tools are so good now, you can just insert, that question and say, hey, I'm trying to create a prompt that's going to help me create a presentation, and I want some bullets and I want some of these other things, give me some prompt options, and you'll get some results for that. So what you are hopefully seeing now that you've done this is a PowerPoint outline and slides. And I even will put in prompts for visuals. I'll say, I want some examples of potential visuals to use for this. And again, this is not going to give you your final bullets or anything like that, but it will give you the start of that. And we'll sort of highlight things. And then what you could do is go cross-check back in the original report. Maybe you're pulling some things from there. I've also found these AI tools to be really great at first draft of talking points. So once I have my presentation or my bullets, I'll either upload those into one of these AI tools, or I'll upload the presentation itself into one of those tools and then ask it to help give me a draft of those talking points. Just be aware that when you're using the public facing tools, anything that you enter into those resources go back into training the model and could potentially be useful for others. So I always tell folks, don't put any proprietary information into, these public tools. Don't put any PII in those. Now, there are organizations, and our organization has this, where it's a firewalled sort of bespoke versions of AI tools where, that information is not then going back out into the world. But again, that just depends on the stage of your organization and what you're using them for. And if you want to chat about that, let me know. I'm always happy to dive, deeper. We can strike up a conversation after that. So I'm just going to take a look at was there anything else on this slide? I just want to check and see in the chat if there's any questions while in Adobe. Okay, so I love it. Folks are sharing some different ways that they were approaching this. So a couple of options you have there on using AI tools. I also wanted to give you a few additional examples just to kind of get the ideas turning. So curious, how many of you have heard of the Alert California system? They have over 1,000 cameras across the state of California, and they're using AI to help detect the early stages of fires and hot spots and smoke and other things. And they've had a really fantastic success rate with being able to flag those early for the local fire departments and others. And I think in the first 2 months, they were able to accurately predict 77 different fires before calls from 911 even came in. So there's some really fascinating applications of this. I actually have one pointed towards the mountain that I live on, which is a little disconcerting, but at least it's there. And perhaps not surprising, this was one of Time's, the magazine Time said this was one of the best inventions of 2023, this whole ability to stop wildfires. So you can go onto that website and check it out. You can see live footage from each of the cameras, and it's just really interesting. So thought I would share that as a little snippet. And then we mentioned also optimizing some of the human resources. I'm curious if any of you have encountered these chatbots in any of these jurisdictions. There's, one in LA that answers a lot of questions. They call it CHIP. There is the Peak chatbot in Colorado that has really helped their staff to decrease the number of calls and responses they need to do. So it frees up the time of those employees to focus on higher value activities. We see, Miami-Dade has an English and Spanish, chatbot. And this is one of those areas where AI tools have been around for quite a while. And so, the risks are lower. These are something a lot of even smaller groups are looking at because, the costs and the ability to stand one of these up is not like, implementing across California an AI tool to, measure wildfires. So there's, different applications of the technology to the different needs we have. So really this is about what are the successes that we're thinking of, what do we need to be considering? And then as we go along, what are some of the risks that we want to avoid, or what are some of the limitations we're thinking about? So I'm curious to see, and some of you may have already answered this question, but this is, again, is back in the Slido that we had. What are some of the things that concerns you about AI tools? And I think I can be over here and share this. We have a number of folks. So we see, using it for a public interface and giving the wrong answers. Absolutely. And this is why, a lot of that testing is really important, especially for things that are auto-generating and sort of making sure it's giving back the responses you want. We see inaccurate info if people become too complacent with using AI tech. Great one. It still needs a human for sure. Also holding someone reliable to the QC. Love that statement. Giving misleading or incomplete information. Absolutely. It develops inaccurate content. We see a lot of those, hallucinations and other things, especially in the early days. And the AI companies continue to refine and improve that, but they are absolutely still there. Relying on it too much, right? We always say, hey, it should never be more than 50% of the work, right? There always needs to be a human in the mix, and that expertise is really important. And we should be thinking these as ways to augment our skills, not to replace. Job security, impersonating, overthrow the human race. I've definitely heard that one. Technology is still new and mostly untested. And again, that's why I wanted to share that spectrum at the very beginning, because, not all AI tools are created equal. We really do need to be thoughtful about the risks and limitations and the opportunities, depending on what the need is, and to be thoughtful and intentional about how we're using them. Using the wrong data, inaccurate results, don't know enough about it. Yeah, you guys are pinging on everything here. All right, fantastic. AI governance is not yet ready. That's another great one. I know we're working with a lot of different organizations on what does that AI governance look like. And for an individual organization, their risk tolerance is going to differ from somebody else. And what are the things that are important to you? What are the questions you should be asking? Or how do you want to, firewall or protect information? Or how do you, what in statistics we always talked about, shit data in, shit data out, right? Like how do you curate the sort of content and information and other things that you're using? And then, I love this one. People getting lazy and not double checking results. That is key. Like when I'm working with folks and doing workshops and training, it's one of the key things is, trust but verify everything. Even I know folks often use it trying to look for sources of information. And in general, I would say AI tools, using it to source things is risky. And I have some good examples where you can get really great sounding results, like, a Harvard Business Review article was so-and-so. And like, I recognized the name of the person and it seemed legit. But when you go and dig and actually hunt for it, they didn't write that article. They wrote a different article and it wasn't, sort of the right contact. So trust but verify, misinterpreting info, all of these. Yeah, you hit them all. All right. So I'm curious, how many of you have seen some of these images after Hurricane Helene? Were these, or I'll look at the chat. Yep, yep. Give me a thumbs up or if you've seen some of these. Okay, so I thought it would be interesting to just have a very brief sort of little exercise here. Sort of, how would you know whether these were real images or not? What would help you as a consumer decide that? there anything that you're seeing in these images themselves that kind of tip you off that something might be amiss? Jim, don't tell me it was AI created. Yeah, spoiler alert, these are all AI created. They look blurred and retouched. That's a good one. Feasibility, physics are weird. Those are great. I've heard that fingers are a big issue. Absolutely. They look blurred and retouched. No one picks up a dog like that. Fair. Too emotional. That's a tall guy. Yeah, I mean, think about that house being in the water. It's a great one. Dog's missing its color. Fantastic. And I have to say, given the pervasiveness of AI images, AI generated images that came out after Hurricane Helene, my parents were in Asheville and I had sort of real pictures of some of the places from them. They're fine, they're doing well, but it was quite an ordeal and very challenging for them. So just thought I'd put this up. You mentioned a few of these, right? Misshapen boat. You may have seen, okay, the ear, highly emotional pictures like this and things that just feel a little off. Always question those. Skin tone, you can see a couple of things here. And then the next one, we've got, I loved what somebody was saying about physics. And you could even think about construction or things that just don't seem to line up. And you're right, if things are blurry, there are 6 fingers on this particular gentleman here. And I will say there are AI tools to help identify AI generated images, if you can believe it or not. There's also a big movement around how do we validate images ahead of time and assure, especially in news stories and other things like that, that they are not AI generated. And so there are a number of different watermarks and other things that news agencies and others are working with organizations on to assure that the images they're using are not AI generated. So just thought that would be interested. There's a lot of, deep fakes and other things out there. But again, there are tools and ways for us to think about it. A lot of folks mentioned hallucinations when we were looking at that slide as well. So I'm not going to go too deeply into this, but just know that, again, go back to that trust but verify, especially for things like facts, figures, and statistics. Those are things where, similar to like the early days of Wikipedia and other things like that, you would always go back to that primary source of that information to validate that content. Right. So as we're using these tools, the next 2 slides really just highlight those things for us to take a look at. So for data management and security, some of the actions we can take are around strengthening our policies and infrastructure, taking a look or understanding what the training data is used that was creating that particular tool, or if we're creating a bespoke AI tool for our organization, being really thoughtful about what sort of data and information we include. That can also be something where, are you going to use tools that are already created, or will you maybe collaborate with another group to do something bespoke? There are pros and cons to both of those. We also talk about the ethical use and accessibility opportunities as well as challenges. So how can we be promoting digital inclusion? We know because a lot of the content, most of the content being used to train these tools is created by humans, it will be infused with the biases that humans have sort of across the spectrum. And so we need to be thoughtful and know that that's the case. And we might develop and think about how we do prompts or about how we create things in different ways, just knowing that those biases occur, and we can decrease what those biases are. Having those legal and ethical guidelines, that's something a lot of organizations are working on. And then we can't underscore, or we need to underscore the ecological and social impact and what those guidelines might be for ourselves and our organizations. And then finally, user engagement and adoption and strategic implementation, right? So being transparent about our use of AI is really important. We do not use AI with a client unless that client is aware and has approved of our use of AI tools for whatever we might be working on for them. And there's a whole governance process that we have around that. Encouraging human oversight, providing AI training, and then prioritizing, what those user-friendly designs are. There are some tools out there that are more user-friendly than others, and that's something to consider. I think some of you even had challenges on some of the public use tools today. There are organizations who have taken those and have thought about what is that user experience like and how can I improve that so that I'm not frustrating people or I'm not, I'm finding ways to make it easier for them. And then with the strategic implementation and partnerships, this again just gets back to exploring what that return on investment is. There may be instances where using an AI tool really doesn't make sense. I mean, there are very important reasons for us to get together live in meetings and in groups and to work on things and to whiteboard and to have that co-creation, whether it's with communities or with colleagues or sort of other partners. That is not something we might use an AI tool to maybe capture the meeting notes from that, but we would still have somebody who was present there on that day review and approve and sort of annotate and add to those notes in order to sort of bring in that other sort of human experiential element. And again, thinking about ways bias is introduced. So back to this slide, just sharing this again. This is the sort of relative risk perspective I've come up with, for a lot of the work that I do. But again, based upon what your organization is focused on and what is important to them, this might look different. Or when you look at a given tool, there might be additional governance structures or training or other things that you want to do within your organization or within your team to make sure folks are using them in the ways in which you are intending them to be used. All right. So I'm curious, now that you've gotten we've sort of gone across a lot of different topics, a lot of different areas. What is one AI powered tool that you are interested in trying? It's in the chat. Any of these sparking an interest or anything you've maybe thought of bringing to your organization or your team? And I'll put this back up here because maybe this gives you some hints. Are there any of these sort of uses of AI of spotting fake images? All right, I like it. Using it to translate languages, yeah. And that's another great example too, because there is bias in all kinds of things, even when we have humans translate things. So taking a look at maybe the translation of content, maybe live translations at a meeting, the risks, or the benefits outweigh the risks. Maybe for written materials for translation, you're going to decide, hey, I always want to make sure, maybe AI is helping us to generate a first draft, but we're going to have in our process to make sure that a native speaker is still going to review and edit and annotate that before we finalize that document. So it's a great one there. Chatbots for FAQs, automating permitting. Oh, I love that idea. That would definitely save people a lot of time and effort. Remote sensing alerts, training the public and filling out paperwork for permits. You're speaking my love language. That's great. I mean, that would be really helpful. Putting complex information into a presentation. Yeah, absolutely. So those are all, you all have, I think, those wheels turning in terms of different applications you might consider. So now that we've explored this a little bit, I'm hoping that you think of AI tools not as something that's going to take our jobs or something that's going to replace us or those sorts of things. It really is about us having the power and being able to augment our own skills and areas of expertise, and to do that, faster, more streamlined, and quite frankly, take out a lot of the things that are more mundane in the day-to-day work that we focus on, and allowing our minds and our teams to really focus on those higher value activities where we can really bring in that strategic, input and insight, and where, we're doing the things that, AI tools, can't do. That's about building relationships. That's about building trust, having those conversations, understanding sort of what needs are, and really having the impact I know you all want to have in your day-to-day. So we covered a lot. We also have another, I'm going to turn on our second survey here. And this really is just an opportunity for us to hear back from you a little bit about where your interests lie. And, this is, we're curious if any of you submitted AI related sessions for ASFPM, or if you have plans for other conferences. And again, you can go back to our Slido. I'll just stick this up again if you need to get back in there. You know, do you have plans yourself? Are you taking any AI related courses that you found to be particularly helpful? What sort of topics and themes would you like to see coming from us? You know, for instance, you know, we had the thought that, you know, we really just covered high level things today in terms of doing some summaries and some data. You know, for some teams or for some in our group, maybe you want sort of the step-by-step next steps, or, you know, I'm starting from chatgpt.com, you know, I need help, Sky, on where to click, where to go, what to cut and paste, you know. So we've had some talks about, well, what is the spectrum of training needs that we might have as a team? So exploring that. So please, you know, either share in the chat or share in the interest area, and I can share those up in a second. And then just wanted to leave you with, you know, in terms of next steps, it really is about learning how these different AI tools work, how they might apply to what you're doing from day to day, where they might be applicable for your teams and your organization. Try them out in your personal life, at least. I mean, I have, you know, someone I work with that does their meal planning on Sundays. AI not only creates all of the recipes based upon her family's dietary restrictions, but it also creates the shopping list for her to go to the grocery store and, you know, very easily and quickly know exactly what she needs. I have used it even for party planning. So I have a Christmas holiday party coming up, used it to help me create the invite and other things. So even if you're not using, or you're not able to use them in your day-to-day work yet, at least try to be familiar with the different opportunities that exist, trying it out in your personal life. And then in general, I think it's really important for us to stay current and thoughtful on the different conversations that keep happening in our industry. So how can we think about the ethics, the bias, the safety, the transparency, the security, and other needs that we might have? Right. And again, you will receive this in the final version of this. There are a number of different sources that were shared, a number of different resources. The QR code is just if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, or, you know, reach out to me, you can do that through this. But I did want to leave a little bit of time for, you know, some of the showing you the questions and answering other questions you might have. So, you know, our thought leadership interest, you can see here, we've had a few, you know, most of you know, a few of you, yes. We've got our next one where we can see some of, if you have plans to submit to other conferences. So a few of you, yes. And again, I think we've got a spectrum of those familiar with AI on this call today. We've got AI courses you've attended. So if this was your first, fantastic. We hope to do more things like this. So if there are particular needs that you have or suggestions of topics, please share those as a member of ASFPM and as part of the AI Subcommittee membership. And then would you be interested in presenting in the future? All right, for all of the folks, for the 14% who said yes, please write to the leadership, share that with us. We would love, you know, to have other people talk about some of the things they're seeing. And then let's see, what are some of the topics people are interested in? AI policy and governance, absolutely. Thinking about it, how AI can work in disaster response and help disaster survivors. I mean, filling out the financial forms after disaster, I think that's a really potentially powerful use case to explore. So hopefully what we've given you is a bit of a flavor for some of the potential uses of AI tools. This was certainly not an exhaustive presentation. We were just kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg on a lot of things here. But hopefully you got a little bit out of this, had a couple of new ideas, maybe got a chance to explore an AI tool for the very first time. Yeah, would love to hear from you if you have any other thoughts or questions or things that came up. And thank you for everybody who was helping in the chat to answer questions and help people out. So hope you enjoyed today.
Thanks. This is great, Sky. And thanks for everyone's participation on this event. I do want to quickly mention if you have any idea or any comments or you want to present in the future, Pamela, can you put our Google survey link to the chat so people can fill in? Yeah, so that's a Google Doc. So you can fill in the form. Let us know. We do check the information you put in there. Another thing is everything gonna be posted on this link. So I just put it into the chat of the work plan and past events, webinars, slide decks are here. So including this one, it's gonna be available after the event. And I wanted to thank everyone's time joining us today. And thanks to Sky. This is awesome. I do like the interactive of this section. I hope everyone can take some little bit of homework to do, like today or tomorrow. Try this little AI tool by yourself, and you can enjoy that. And we can continue the discussion.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thanks.